Welcome back to the One More K podcast. My name is Marcus Gnurk. I'm your host, and I'm here with my dear buddy, Ned Phillips. It is brought to you by Lecka. Hey, Ned.
How are you, Marcus? How was your... We have to ask, how was your running this week?
It's been good so far. Yesterday I went for easy 7K trot, just to get it out of the system. It happens to me that when I fall asleep, sometimes I'm getting itchy legs, and that's usually a sign I should go running the next day. So I had very itchy legs on Sunday, so I had to get out yesterday, and I'm going to get out again today. But nothing compared to you and your Sunday 40K?
Yeah, it's just become a thing. I don't know why. It's become a thing that I get up about 5 a.m., I get out there and I enjoy it, and I have a loop. I have a couple of loops, and they just become, like anything in life. Like I have a friend who meditates for 2 hours, and it blows my mind. And he said, well, I didn't start by meditating for 2 hours. I used to meditate for 5 minutes, and then 10 minutes, and then 15. It's like anything, right? It becomes normal. So yeah, my weekend run has just become normal for me. Everyone has their own normal.
Yeah, I admire that. Not bad. You're doing a 100K this weekend?
Yeah, I have these, I believe in micro adventures, and I think I wrote one of my weekly things about it, the idea that you can just, your own adventure is your own adventure. So sometimes when I'm running, I just think of ideas, like I have these kind of longer runs. Anyway, I had this idea, so I am going on Friday at 5:30 p.m. I am going to go and 5:30 Friday run 100K, just a loop in Singapore, just my own loop that I just made up. And the loop starts and ends, well, the loop, from where the park run is. So most people will know what a park run is. It is a 5K weekly thing that happens all around the world. They're 5K timed races, runs. And I'm going to give myself 14 hours to run 100K. I'll probably do it in about 13 and a half. Ideally, arrive back half an hour before the start of the park run. So I will stop my watch, and that will be 100K. And then I'm going to see what I can do a 5K in after 100. Now, given I'm a much slower 5K runner, I used to be like an 18-minute guy 5-6 years ago. I'm now a 24.5-minute guy. So starting from a base of 24.5, what can I do a 5K in after 100K? Answers on a postcard, and we will see.
I will say sub 30 minutes.
This seems to be, I've just talked to a few people about it. That seems to be the defining mark. Can I break 30 is the question.
Yes. That's exciting. We'll find out next week.
We will find out next week.
Yes. So a week has passed since our first recording. Quite crazy. And it really has accelerated our conversation. And we've been WhatsApping back and forth like there's no tomorrow. And if you start thinking about it, you actually realize how much is happening in the trail world. And before it was more, of course, just a casual chat. But then once we put our focus on it and our attention on it, you start to gather all the information. And it's quite astonishing to me what's been happening in the last 7 days. So it's quite good to have this podcast so we can check in and spread the news with the trail running world who might appreciate our summary.
It is. And I think this is going to be the recurring theme. We are at the greatest inflection point of our sport ever. The fact that we are not even in January and we have so much to talk about. So much. Normally, there wouldn't even be a race in this part of the year. And now we have races, drama, controversy, beautiful riding, so much.
Let's dig in, because
do it.
You mentioned drama. Let's go right into the drama. There was a leak. Can you imagine? There's a leak in trail running where now people are leaking stuff, so it means something is very important. And the leak was, of course, Zach Miller's and Kilian's letter they wrote to the top 15 athletes. They consider top 15 athletes. And what's going on, Ned? Let me actually share my screen, and I'm going to put on this letter. So anyone who's watching us on YouTube, you might be able to see this. I'm going to have it here now. So yeah, let's talk about this.
The one thing I would say is, in as well as this email, or this letter, which was leaked, which is always hard, right? But it is what it is, right? Zach and Kilian wrote it. I would really implore you guys, if you're not tired of listening to this podcast, or even before you finish this podcast, Zach did a podcast on a podcast show called Single Track. Marcus, I'm sure we can tag it in the notes of the show. a guy called Finn, not sure his name. He did it just before this letter, or just as the letter came out, like 10 days ago. It was beautiful. I mean, Zach is the soul of our sport. If any of you haven't seen Billy Yang's famous film called Zach in Relentless Pursuit, please do. If you don't know who Billy Yang is, you're hiding under a rock. He's the greatest filmmaker in our sport. Zach just has the right moral compass. He says it as it is. He has, and you all know Zach. He's the Prefontaine of our sport. He runs off the front. He puts it all down. We all love him. He's amazing. But the drama is this. Zach just feels we're going off track. And Zach's not against people making money. And he's not against UTMB. He's like, I love UTMB and it's okay to make money. And he makes money. And he even writes in this email, I'm doing it from the perch of comfortability. But his point is, we are going off track because we are not considering the soul of the sport. And I think he just wants us to get back. And I am completely on board. Marcus, what do you think?
I first and foremost found it very interesting how Zach referred to Kilian as the father of the sport. So in the podcast single track, you're right, Zach was beautifully talking about his perspective, and he referred to Kilian as a mentor even, and mentioned also how Kilian has helped him through these times to reflect on this UTMB situation. Mm-hmm. He did mention the letter. He did not mention it was getting leaked, of course. So it's very interesting to see how the two of them were actually phrasing it in the letter. And it kind of, I guess, gave you some idea about the insights of the brains of those two individuals. Because usually we only see them racing. We see the physical side. We see the body. We see the body going out and doing crazy things. However, now seeing a letter is interesting to see how the two of them are actually phrasing their thoughts. And that's for me just giving a little, peek into the brain of these ultra runners, which I find very exciting. I think they were trying to be very kind of diplomatic about it. They say here, this is a good thing that money came into it, attention came into it, they benefited from themselves. At the same time, though, they also are calling for a boycott, which is a strong word. And I think that's one way of doing it, personally. I think that's probably more of a Western approach to things. I think the boycotting is quite also European, to be honest. I mean, yep. We know how Europeans like to go on strike from time to time for sometimes good reasons, sometimes not good reasons. But in my personal opinion, I think that's just, a splitting up of certain groups. I'm not sure that many of the athletes will follow. I think quite a few will acknowledge it and will have an opinion. But the racing world goes on, and UTMB is part of the racing world. And I'm sure that also other athletes who are just coming up now, who are looking for sponsorship. I just spoke to one athlete here in Asia yesterday. I'm not going to mention the name right now, but they say, we're going to go anyway. We want the money, we want sponsorship, so we need to go. And so this will just give rise to a new generation of runners who will not look at UTMB the way that maybe that group is looking at UTMB.
I don't doubt that this would not stop runners who haven't, and Zach, who would not stop runners who need it. And I don't think Zach or Kilian would mind. I think they would be very clear. Hey guys, look, we're asking the top 15. And to my mind, why the top 15? Because they can afford it, right? Like if you're number 178th ranked in the world and you get a sponsored ticket to UTMB, you're going. Go. Go. It's not mercenary to go to UTMB. And I think Zach and Kilian don't want to stop UTMB. They don't want to ruin it. They want it just to be done with more care. They want it to be done with more love. But this is this. And one thing I noticed and they never called out, I don't think it's UTMB that's the problem. I don't think it's Ironman that's the problem. It's the private equity demands that are behind it are the problem. And not the private equity is the problem. It is a business. And trail running and business, maybe those two words can't fit in the same sentence.
Well, maybe for the ones who don't know the term private equity, and you and I kind of come from this world of business in a certain extent, would you mind explaining what this means, private equity? What's going on there?
Good question. people invest in businesses to make returns. And there's many ways to do it. You can go and buy shares in Apple or Netflix on the stock market. So you're an investor. Then there's many ways to invest. But private equity basically means money. And private means investing in firms that are not on the stock market. So you can't buy shares on the public stock markets. It's normally hundreds of millions of dollar deals. And they take an active interest in the business. So they buy a business that perhaps is undervalued, i.e. a business that could generate more money, and they put pressure, and the word pressure doesn't have to be negative or positive. It is often negative. Put pressure to get more money out of that business over a period of time between 5 to 10 years so they can sell it for more than they paid for it. In general, it's done with the single outcome in mind to generate more money that you paid for it. Trail running is a gentle, beautiful thing that perhaps, and we all want to make money. I mean, you run, and I'm a very small part of a nutrition business, and we want to do that for money. And Zach and Kilian are not against that. They've made money from it. But you can both make money and take care. And I hate to say private equity doesn't always take care, but in general, taking care isn't the strongest point. And Ironman has become the one and done. Get people in, get them out. Whether they love it or not, take that. Do you know what it costs to enter an Ironman now? $1,000.
Yes, that's scary. I mean, I think I look at it in a way, if you just compare it on a more business and product level. I mean, all of us are consumers. We're all customers of this. We are paying a price to participate. So we essentially are a customer. If there are investors, there's a customer protest. Just like if you look at any other product that's sold and we buy it, and if a certain big group of customers complains, sometimes the product can change. Sometimes the investors realize they need to change the product. So I think this letter and this initiative is a customer protest, and it might lead to refining and improving the product so there's a better product market fit, right? Which is also a big term that we're using in business world. And I think let's see how many customers will follow. I think there's a leading group now, but if a significant amount of customers are saying we want to change this, then I'm 100% sure that any investor or business owner will change. I mean,
Sorry, carry on.
I was saying, running a nutrition business and running a business on myself, you need to make sure that your product works for your customer. Nutrition is about flavor, about consistency. We need to adjust all the time how to make it work for the customer. So Ironman is also not a god, and UTMB is not a god. They need to adjust and change, and so that customers are still buying.
Okay, so unfortunately, this is where I'm going to push back. Zach isn't the customer of UTMB, and neither is Kilian. It is the person who wants to get and collect stones. Ironman triathletes formed unions. They did everything. They've done all this. We've been through this in Ironman. You form unions. The pro athletes shout. The pro athletes get upset. Yada yada yada. You know what the response is? We're Ironman. We sell out races every day. We get 2,000 cash. The pros don't even pay an entry fee. Look at Ironman. Pros don't pay an entry fee. The one and done, the new people, the people coming into it, everybody, they pay. Customers love Ironman. I'm going to say runners love UTMB. Okay, do you think UTMB won't sell out this year in terms of recreational runners? Of course it will sell out, right? Of course. And it doesn't matter. Even if no pro runners turn up, Ironman started to segregate itself into races with no pros. They said, you know what? Ironman went as far to say, we believe the real customer doesn't even care if pros are there. We're going to have no pro races. And you know what? They sell out.
Where does it leave us with Zach and Kilian? Do they become dinosaurs and people just listen and smile? Or what does it mean to them, to the two of them actually, or that group?
I think they're such gods. Not gods is the wrong one because they're not gods. Kilian is the GOAT, and Zach is I keep using this word, the soul of our sport, and maybe we'll touch on this later. He wrote another beautiful piece on I Run Far. Zach just believes, they're both at the end of their careers. Here's the reality, right? They're both at the end. They could stop right now. Zach even talked about it. He said, I could stop. He doesn't want to. He said a beautiful thing. Zach said, I'll keep running as long as the sponsors are sponsoring me to win races, not just to turn up, because I do not want to take money from an up-and-coming youngster. I think, but I think they'll become the wise old men in the corner, the wise people who I think brands would do well to nod to. And I adore those guys. I think they're the best. But I think the new wave comes through, and I think this could be the start of the second generation of these ultra fast, as we mentioned on the first podcast, the young college runners, the Asian runners, and we'll talk about HK100. I think this could be the start of a new wave of runners, because the industry can live without Kilian and Zach, as much as it pains me to say that.
Let's talk about the other GOAT, which is Courtney, and she has been on the BBC. That is quite a feat, and she has become so mainstream that even the BBC is covering her. What's going on there?
Ultra, they had a backyard article a couple of years ago. Every so often they put one out, but this, even more important, it was a long read, which means it was an in-depth article. And it was really just about Courtney is the GOAT, that Courtney has come up and redefined the sport, brought lots of new people. So basically, and for all of you listeners, you can tell by my accent I'm British. I was brought up on the fact that the BBC is facts. Are we in a post-fact reality? Who knows? But that doesn't matter because we're not a political show. Is the BBC the purveyor of all things correct? I don't know, but it's certainly a respectable organization. And they had a huge article on Courtney. 2 main points. Number one, this is a rare sport that women and men are almost equal as we go far. So the idea that Courtney was winning races. And it also described Courtney in the greatest way I've ever seen. It said, the interviewer said, or it wrote, Courtney has the air of a skateboard kid who never quite achieved adulthood. I love that. It's so true, with her candy munching shorts. So she's becoming a global superstar outside trail running, and that's amazing.
I found it very interesting about that statistic that female and male almost can achieve in the same distance and same time if it reaches 100 miles and plus. And Courtney is really an example of how she is defeating many males now in the races.
And she does it with this air that it doesn't matter whether she wins or loses. Of course she wants to win. Fiercely competitive. If you've seen, The Source. So again, I can watch ultra films all day. So number one, watch Billy Yang's In Relentless Pursuit of Zach. And number two, watch The Source, which I don't think was Billy. Maybe it was Billy, which is about 4 years old. Courtney was a cross-country ski champion as a young lady in college and at university. And her coach came on. And her coach said, this is hilarious, Courtney is the most frightening competitor he's ever met. You don't think of Courtney and frightening?
Have you heard anything from her about this changing landscape of trail running? She's been quiet, right?
I don't think obviously I don't know Courtney. And look, Zach and Kilian don't want to do it. They're not out there to be troublemakers. They're just saying it. I think Courtney's going to stay being Courtney. And I don't know. I think Courtney's a bit overwhelmed, right? Like that, again, that single moment at UTMB when it was like just all too much. She's been quiet. She's been doing FKTs. We don't know what she's doing this year. It does seem that everybody's going to Gary's race. That's what Zach said. He's going to Gary's race. Gary Robbins up and wham. Maybe Courtney's going there too. It'll be fast. Let's say Courtney doesn't go back. Courtney doesn't go. She'll vote with her feet. You see, Courtney doesn't need to speak.
Yeah, she seems a bit more of a happy-go-lucky person to me, to be honest, and is more, doing it than talking about it. That seems to be her style in general. Just get the shit done and go for it. Pardon my French.
It is a good way.
Yeah, for sure. No, for sure. I mean, let's see how she's going to do this year. I'm very curious. She had a fantastic year last year, and I don't think that can almost be topped in any way. But, yeah.
To me, she has to do something completely different. I would love her to go and do Tour de Géants, or however you pronounce it, the 300. I think she maybe goes back to 200 mile. What's she going to do? Win Western States again? I mean, come on. She can do all of this. She can't win Hard Rock, UTMB. I don't know. She hasn't revealed. But I think, or maybe she, you know what I would love? Courtney, if you're listening, we need to get Courtney to listen to this, Marcus. That would be awesome. We're going to get her on the show one day. I hope she goes for one of the long trails, FKT on the Appalachian Trail or the Continental Divide, or some other crazy FKT. I would love to see her do it. Or you know what, Courtney? Beat the record for running across America. Do that.
That's true. I mean, Francois Dane is going to Tour de Géant. That seems to be confirmed. So him against her would be quite something as well.
Oh my
For the
God.
books.
Imagine if she won. Let's go.
Yes. Something else that came up on the radar, which was the racing teams. And I think you pointed it out last week or this week. I can't remember. But there is a lot of things going on with the racing teams. Always have been, but there seems to be a lot of movement also this year. What can you give us an insight? What are the racing teams and what's going on?
So obviously, One More K will now become your favorite ultra running podcast. But the other one you should have been listening to was Free Trail. Not you, but the listeners. Dylan Bowman has done such a fantastic job. That podcast was called The Well. It was called Pillars. He changed the name three times now. It's up to Free Trail. And I think he's really nailed it with Free Trail. So if you're not listening to Free Trail, you should be. It's fantastic. Dylan Bowman is making a fantastic just content library there. He's putting out, it's like the NFL draft for you American listeners. He has who's moving where, who to what team. Just the idea that this would even be a thing. Like trading. We can have fantasy cards. Oh my God, Marcus, let's do it. Let's have fantasy trading cards of, you know what I mean, as kids, those packs?
Yes.
So what is happening is this is who's moving from Hoka to North Face to Salomon. You know, it doesn't show all the interesting, but just look at that. If you're looking on, if you're on YouTube, you can see, if you're listening, hundreds of names. Like I saw Ricky Gates there. Oh my God, the legend of all legends. But there are so many people moving, and you'll see names like Hoka to Merrell to Norda to Ultra it's amazing that this is happening.
Yeah.
One here that I can see, Samaya Buddha, moving from North Face to Kailas, an Asian runner to an Asian sponsor, a Chinese gear manufacturer. But just the idea that we would have a list of who's moving to who. Oh my, people didn't even used to be sponsored before. Have a look at it. Super interesting.
Without saying that this list is complete, of course, there's probably more happening, but I do want to pick up on a trend here, and is that Salomon seems to lose quite a few athletes. There are either Salomon moving to a new brand, or people are like Ricky Gates, just leaving Salomon. This is maybe worth digging into, and if any listener has insights on this, we would appreciate what's going on. But it seems like that there might be a restructuring or some other thing happening at Salomon, and other brands are coming up. Where Salomon was the go-to brand for decades, I feel like, especially in shoes and gear, and of course from the skiing world. But in this case, on shoes, new brands are emerging, like Kailas is a larger Chinese brand. They're moving into it. They also have Sange Sherpa as an ambassador, who I know personally, great guy. And so Merrell is also looking to get more sponsored athletes. So I think new brands are coming in, and some other older ones are kind of changing and losing athletes.
It's amazing to see how this is changing. And, you know, brands like Hoka that weren't here even 10, 12 years ago, now Hoka do 1.7 billion in revenue. It's amazing, right? Probably more than Salomon. And I think, but it also comes down to the athlete manager. So for any of you who've been in the sport a while, you should know the name Topher Gaylord. Topher is Dean Karnas's, his great friend. He started way back at Under Armour. He's been through all of the firms, Under Armour and Red Bull, and he's an athlete manager, athlete recruiter. And he was talking about how athlete managers at firms end up shaping where an athlete goes, right? So maybe Salomon lost their athlete manager. It's also the reality, like Zach was talking, how to get sponsors. Zach's been around long enough, but it is the media game, and who's into media and who's into content, and who's like the greatest content producer. And the person I would sponsor is a guy who doesn't race, Ricky Gates. Like if you haven't watched Transamericana, like you have to get onto it, and every single street. So it's fascinating. I wonder if some people are moving, is Salomon doing content or not? Or they don't have an athlete manager or not? Or they're sponsoring different races or not? So it would be great. Hey, if you're from Salomon, interestingly, they just opened a huge store in Singapore. Would love to find out what they're doing. But you're right. People go to Hoka, but they seem to be leaving Salomon.
That's true. The other thing I observed was that all of these teams are sponsored by brands who are usually in the gear or garment sector. So it's shoes or just any other gear, but it's not nutrition, it's not watches, it's not anything else. It's simply the Hoka, Salomon, Merrells of the world who are sponsoring these teams. So I was wondering, why would these garment brands sponsor rather than any other brand?
An exception there is like a couple of the watches as well. Coros and Garmin sponsor as well. But you're right, and I think I don't know. Obviously, look, you have a nutrition business, right? I'm a huge believer in content marketing, and you mentioned my. So I run 40K each weekend. I listen to podcasts. I listen to the head of creativity from Ogilvy and Mather, a guy called Rory Sutherland. He's been there 37 years, talking about how you make a brand. And it's the authenticity of the story. And I think you're right. I think a lot of these are just slapping gear on people and not thinking about it. And it's a great question. Like, I don't know enough about this. But look, if you're an athlete, if you're an up-and-coming athlete, you're not going to get a Hoka brand because the top guys are getting it. So you need to go for niche brands. You need to tell niche stories. And, to me, a shoe, you don't advertise that a shoe is waterproof. Of course it's waterproof. Or it has good tread. No. You advertise, or you tell a story that it took you, let's say it took you from an underprivileged background and it got you to like Sunmaya, to me, is what gear can do.
Yeah.
She's come from one of the poorest countries on earth and she's going to be a superstar. It's not the gear that made her, but the gear is part of the story. But why nutrition and other things haven't done it? I don't know, Marcus, but perhaps we can figure it out.
We're on it. We are on it. I think it's also maybe a good point just quickly to highlight what Zach said in his I Run Far post, which was quite interesting and resonated quite well with me. Don't do it for the money. And just like many other things in life, we shouldn't do it for the money. Entrepreneurs like us, we shouldn't do it to raise more money from private equity firms. Just like athletes shouldn't do it just for the money. And like I have learned in my business career, if you do it for the passion, you do it for the obsession, money will follow. And the customers, the product is important. And as a runner, you are the product yourself. Make sure that the product works and that you do the right thing and do it with all of your heart. And the money will come. And so I think that what Zach said in his podcast and on the post, he advises young athletes to focus on themselves first, and then the money will come. And that's something he would teach him, a younger self of Zach. What do you think about that?
It's, and again, he's very cognizant of the fact that he's saying it from a position where he's made some money. But he spent 10 years not making it. But it's so true, right? I wonder if I can get through an entire episode of One More K without mentioning Lazarus Lake. I don't think it's possible. But he charges $1.60 to enter Barclay. It's $1.60, right? And it's oversubscribed a gazillion times. He could charge $500 to enter Barclay or $1,000, right? His product is amazing. And he does it because he believes in it. And it's amazing, right? So I think, this brand story, okay, I'm going to ask you a question. It's not fair, Marcus, but I'm going to ask it to you anyway, because we can do what we like. It's our show. Let's say you were almost breaking into the top end of pro running. You're top 30 at UTMB, and you're training hard and think you could be top 10. You get approached by a shoe brand that you don't like for a lot of money. Would you run it? You don't love the shoes, but it's money. You don't know if it will help you run faster. Do you take the money, or do you stay in your old shoes and reject the money?
So it depends who I am. So right now, me being Marcus, I would like to believe I have some financial freedom. So I can say no to this. If I imagine I'm going to come from Cambodia or Nepal or any other country here in this region, I would argue, yes, I would go for it. And I would say, yes, it's a stepping stone. You got to do what you got to do. And if you want to travel to the races, you want to, side note, when you book your Airbnb at Chamonix UTMB, you pay the price. They message you afterwards privately and say, oh, by the way, it's UTMB weekend. We charge another 1,000 euros on top of this. Leave it or take it.
For real?
For real. They message you afterwards privately and say, we need to charge another 1,000 euros, dollars on top of it. Either you take it or you leave it. So Just let that sink in. What €1,000 mean for a Southeast Asian, emerging market, African, whatever athlete. It's incredible. Yeah? I know the average minimum the minimum wage here in Vietnam is like 6 million dong, which is 200 300 euros a month. So those things will come, and yeah, of course, if then a sponsor says we will pay that extra fee, just that extra fee already, not even talking about the flights and the visa, all these things, you start to wonder. This is not anymore just the running sport where you say, oh, I can just grab a pair of shoes and a vest and I have some fun, which is like super easy to entry. But to become pro, it is certainly easier for Western individuals who live in a social welfare system with passports, with certain things which give you access to it. So it is not necessarily fair. So back to your question, if I would be such an individual, I would say, hell yeah, sure, give me the money, give me the shoes, I run with it, whatever it takes.
I think you have summarized it perfectly. It is the reality, and it's a good thing. Like, it is a good thing that these opportunities are there. They were never there before.
Yeah.
It's fantastic, and we should move on towards race results, because I think opportunity is about to come knocking for certain individuals based on some of the results over the weekend.
You mentioned race results. So race recap corner. Quickly covering, of course, the crazy race, the spine race in your home country. Looks like the British have really done well, and even a new record has been set.
So this is, look, and we can get pretty quickly over this, but 268 miles. The coldest temperature was -13 in winter, 8 hours of light, 16 hours of darkness, over the hills and the moors of halfway through England up to Scotland. A young man, Jack Scott, 29-year-old, broke the record by 10 hours. The record used to be 82 hours. He went 72 hours. The record was held by Jasmine Paris, a lady, 72 hours. And Damien Hall, who finished second, the great Damien Hall, finished second by 10 hours. He broke the course record as the previous course record. But here's a cool story, and this is a public cool story. Jack Scott is 29. He started running 5 years ago because he was an addicted gambler and had a gambling problem. His life was spiraling out of control, and he became addicted to long-distance running instead. He's now a motivational speaker, and he helps gambling addicts to get away from gambling, and he just has an incredible will. Just did amazing over that. That whole race is a week. And on the women's side, Claire Barnworth, the great backyard athlete, became a repeat winner, and one of the few repeat winners ever. Only 7 people broke 100 hours. To give you a sense of the race. Only 7 people.
Incredible. I mean, it looked so tough. Following on Twitter, you see the pictures of them going through storm and ice and mud. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. Like,
it is. It's like an amazing race.
Sitting here in Asia in the tropical climate, you're like, oh, wow.
I'm going to do it one day. I'm going to do it one day for sure.
Nice. All right, cool. So as well, the Hong Kong 100 happened. It's an iconic race in Hong Kong. First time being part of the World Trail Majors now, the new series we kind of mentioned last week already. What's been going on there? Let me put up the results on my screen, but you can start talking.
What are the key facts? 1,800 starters. 1,800 starters in a race in Hong Kong. It's amazing. I mean, Hong Kong's pretty much the capital of trail running in Asia, but 1,800, just outstanding. Very unique. On Friday, it had what's called the third, a 33-kilometer race. On Saturday, it had the half, a 50-kilometer race, and then the full, the 100K. So you could do all 3, 2, 1. If you did all 3, the Grand Slam, as you can see here. But the one thing I want to pull out for you, for any of you who don't live in Asia, you might recognize the name Tyler Green. Tyler Green came fourth, I think, at Western States in 2022. He came second in Western States. The Great Western, he came second. And here he ran 10:38 for a third place behind the Chinese winner who went 10, is that 10:16?
16, yes. Yeah.
Look at the stack of this field. Obviously it's in Asia, but this is a World Trail Major, and Tyler Green is a genuine superstar. Older guy, he's in his 40s, but a lot of great trail runners are. Francois Dane's up there. I think this is the start of what this World Trail Major, these Chinese runners, look at that domination. They can go over to Western States and start winning.
Yeah, for me, 70% of the top 10 or 7 out of 10 are Chinese. So clearly it's a race on the male side. On the female side, by the way, it's 8 out of 10. So it's dominated by the Chinese like there's no tomorrow. It's clearly that they're using this race to connect to the West, so to speak. I mean, Hong Kong is basically the hub for Chinese. And it's also a way where the West can easily meet the Chinese. Like Tyler is a good example of him wanting to find out, I guess, how to run with the Chinese. But yeah, clearly dominated by the Chinese, male and female. The race seemed to be quite hot. It was a hot day. People are talking about the temperatures being quite high, surprisingly high, and they've been struggling with it. So I heard some comments on it. The second part was there was actually a live stream. So they put together a pretty decent setup of live streaming. Of course, not as big as UTMB right now, at least. But now they're given it's the part of the World Trail Majors, they also seem to push their media into it so that people can participate more. I've been on the live stream throughout the weekend. I think there were 43 people watching in average, I would say.
That was the issue. So, number one, amazing live stream of a race in Hong Kong. Amazing. Secondly, they copied the Western States setup. Fair play. I think Dylan Bowman and Hillary do a great job with that. Not Hillary, what's her name? Corinne Malcolm. So Dylan Bowman and Corinne Malcolm do a great job. They copied that. I think it was amazing that they had it. But I was shocked. 43 people watching. Maybe it's that people in Asia are not used to watching live streams and the Americans were asleep, right? And the Europeans were asleep. That could be it. But it was very low.
It was very low. I mean, the participation seemed quite international. People were live streaming in from Switzerland, I heard, other parts in the world, so pretty good. Also worth noting is that, of course, the Chinese can't watch YouTube, and they did live stream to China, so we don't know the numbers there at the moment, and we didn't have access to this. Maybe good also finding out and talk to Jeff and Scott, who were the moderators, who did a good job, and Esther. These three did a good job moderating, and I enjoyed the comments. But yeah, I think it was a good start. The thing was nice to see it happening, but I hope it's going to just grow from here significantly.
I think it will. And one other thing, just before you take this screen down, look at the sponsors of the Chinese athletes. Hoka, Ultra, Nike, the North Face. They're getting real sponsors. Yeah. It's happening.
Yeah.
The rise of Asian runners running real times.
Yeah.
Now, interestingly, slightly less sponsors here, but
on the female side. Yep.
Yes. But still, the winner was Adidas in the Terex team, and then Ultra. But you'll see that these times are real now. And I think it is this desire that prize money, even though it's small, is happening. By the way, I have to talk about prize money about an event that happened this weekend. I'll remember it in a minute. Such an amazing idea. That race in Hong Kong started the World Trail Major, the top 5 men, top 5 women in Asia. And we should talk about the Vietnam Mountain Marathon as well now. But that race had the talent. Some of them are going to travel, and they're going to start coming up. And this is where, Marcus, what's going to happen? There's going to be the commentators on Western States and UTMB going, oh my God, this person we've never heard of, whose name we can't pronounce, is crushing, right? And then we'll be like, yes, we told you so on this show first.
Yeah, I think everyone should take a course in pronouncing Asian names. I mean, the Chinese almost, I think, are easy compared to the Thai names, which are like so long.
Correct.
That's another level. But yeah, I think people should start practicing and start getting to know those names. It's a matter of time, for sure.
I agree.
Moving on, just across the border from Hong Kong to my dear kind of home country, home turf, Vietnam. We had the Vietnam Trail Marathon, a race I've been actually also running 3 times already, so it's very close to my heart. I've done the 42K. I even won the 42 at some point.
I remember.
Brag here.
I remember. You got to do it.
Got to do it. Yeah, no, fair enough. But yeah, it's a great race up in the north of Vietnam. It's organized by Topaz, and we have been following this race quite closely as well. Let me put up the screen here with the results. It had the 70K distance in it, and it was, for Vietnam, a pretty strong starter field. Valentin Orange has broken the course record in an incredible time of 7 hours and 1 minute and 40 seconds. He could have gotten sub 7, but I don't know what happened there. I think the last few kilometers were surprisingly steep. They changed the course a bit, so his sub-7 goal was not anymore possible. Next time, Valentin, no pressure. But then the Vietnamese as well. So Nguyen Si Hyo, Tuan Ang, and Tien Vo also really have been pushing it and came up with pretty good times. I think that was a good performance of the Vietnamese. They're all quite local, more or less. I mean, Valentin, of course, is French, and he's been running CCC last year. He came 30th, and also very impressive time. Siho is going to also travel a bit more this year. I know that. Worth noting also is Leslie Novicki. She came in first as a female, came in 5th overall. That's a very strong time. And of course, Vanya, who you know quite well from Singapore. She's a Belgian living in Singapore. She came 2nd female, also in a pretty good time.
And I believe the male winner and the second in the females are powered by some excellent nutrition.
Yes, that's true. They're all Team Lecka. That's true. I think it's good to see this happening in Vietnam. Of course, I mean, we talked about it last week, how Asian races are really coming together now and are giving a platform for locals to practice. Yet, however, they also, of course, need to go overseas and be challenged by international runners.
And I think, a little thought here. The American-European, not battle, but on ultra. There's been an American scene in ultra for a lot longer. European as well, it's ingrained. But in Asia, it's a brand new sport, right? We don't really have the legacy. There's no real ultra legacy in Asia. People are just arriving at it right now. And I think we're going to learn super quickly. It's like Asia in technology or Asia in economics. We just catch up super quickly. Huge number of people. And the money, even though the money sucks in ultra, let's just say it as it is, right? We're not making tennis money or golf money or Saudi football money. We're making minuscules of money. But that minuscule is good for some Asian athletes, right? It's money. It's good. And I think that's only great. One thing that Zach was asked on his podcast, when he was on Finn's single track podcast, Finn said, don't tell me how much, but are the top ultra runners making more money? And Zach was like, oh yeah, we're making money now, man. Like he didn't say, and he said, my dad, who's a blue collar worker, cannot understand how much money I'm making. Now, I don't want to put anything on Zach's dad, but as a, I think he's a, I'm not sure what he does. Don't remember, but he's not making much. He's not making 6 figures. Let's just say it as it is. And I imagine Zach is making 6 figures, right? And I don't think Zach's making 7 figures. So I'm going to take a wild guess. Zach's making six figures. He's not making 7 figures, right? But that's a massive change. Nobody was making 6 figures. But Asian athletes starting to make, high 5 figures is good. It's starting. It's happening. But Zach was super clear. The number of people making money in trail running is really growing, and the top end is making real money, and everyone else can make some money now. And that is a fantastic thing.
Just you mentioned football. You mentioned Saudi Arabia. If you go back in time, but football, in the 50s, 60s was just starting. And then something happened which is called the color TV. And then something else happened, which is the, TV rights being sold. And that gave this whole sport a massive boost in financial income. Where these days you can call this internet and live streaming thing a huge opportunity also for monetizing the sport. And football is of course seeing changes. There's another innovation happening. We're not going to dig into this right now, but I see also football changing. But just as technology enables live streaming now, it will also change this sport and will bring in more money essentially. I think that's part of the evolution.
Do you think we're ever going to start paying to watch running? So when I ran this morning, I listened to a podcast that you recommended me, the All In podcast with your 4 bros who talk about the world. And they talk about a range of things. What the first round playoff game in the American Football League, the Bills against the Chiefs or whatever, Peacock, which is the streaming channel, paid $110 million US to stream one game.
Yeah.
But
here's a question for you. So let's just say you're going to have Courtney racing Francois this year. Would you pay for it or not?
Yes.
To watch it.
Yes.
See? How much would you pay? How much would you pay?
Wow. Here we go. Now we got good conversation. This is it. Wow. Courtney, you mean at Tour de France? Or anywhere.
Or just actually make it a bit broader. Now I'm getting into it. Think about the Champions League. Yeah. Think about the champions runner. So we put all these 15 people together in a trail race. They're trying to boycott UTMB. Or not trying, but they've been asked to. 15 people in one race. the best of the best, 50 to 100K, you could watch it. How much would you pay?
It's a great question. I'd pay $20, $30, $40. No problem.
Yeah.
No problem.
Now we're talking, eh?
Now we're talking. What about how much would you pay? I watch poker. Like I'm a poker fanatic. I pay $10 a month to get the best live stream poker. Would you pay $10 a month for Trail TV? For the best live stream trail?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's similar to Formula One, where it's also several hours of watching, where you also have certain TV rights being sold. I'm sure. Yeah. If you see your athlete performing once a month, or I think it's not necessarily great for the athlete to run 50K every month, so I don't want to say that. But just in terms of as a concept, I think you could argue people would pay for it. Yeah.
Trail, maybe this is it. Trail TV, $10 a month. You can amalgamate all of these. People would pay. There's enough runners, $10 a month.
I mean, it just takes a ESPN or something to pick it up and say, this is going to be part of our program, and then this is going to just explode. Yeah.
It's happening.
Oh, my God.
Oh, my God. Okay. Any other race? I want to cover one surprise race before we any other race caps.
I want to just do a little rant. Like, now is my rant time, because I also know that the North Face 100 in Thailand was happening. It's a significant race. Used to be, I think, a UTMB race. But then you go to the website and you can't freaking find the results. And I'm like, how should we even find out about this race or the runners? I was trying to Google it earlier, like who was winning, and nothing. So please, if you're a race organizer, put the results clearly on your landing page. Otherwise, no one can find about the heroes you've been having part of the race.
This is such a good rant, because it is, we've both worked in tech. You've invested in tech. I've worked in tech. If it isn't simple, people will turn off in a minute. If you can't find your results, people will leave.
Or same as race photos, race pictures. Just make sure that you can find them and use the bib number search function to just find the picture easily, please.
But to your point, the North Face Thailand was like a big race. And now, Hong Kong 100 is bigger, and, Vietnam Mountain Marathon. And look, the North Face 100 is still a great race. But it is definitely, if you're not putting your results, not good.
But then also there might be a quick question is, how much has the UTMB race in December impacted in Thailand, in Chiang Mai, the Do Intanon? How much has it impacted now that race? So it's back to a question of UTMB maybe changing the local landscape as well.
I'm going to say this. In the UTMB by Thailand, or the race now, if you went to people who are racing a UTMB in Asia next week, did you read Zach and Kilian's letter? I'm going to say less than 10% of people read it. I think it's diehards who read it. I think it's the diehards, the old grumpy man like me who read it. But I don't think it has as much impact. But a good point. But it's good to see there's so many races, but still, North Face, sort your results out.
What's your surprise race? What do you want to say?
In America, over the weekend, 130 people lined up at a race. I think it was called the Cathedral or the something. It doesn't really matter. It's a concept. It was a backyard-style last man standing race. It had 130 people. It was only 3 miles, but very steep. And in winter, very cold. Steep, cold. Last 130 people entered. So that's all, whatever. What's Ned talking about? You ready for this? It was $110 to enter. You paid $10 to the race director just to organize it. The $100 you brought along as a $100 bill in your backpack. When you dropped out, you put the $100 bill into a glass jar at the end of the race. The winner got everybody's 100. There were 130 people. The winner got $13,000.
Wow. That is very cool.
Isn't that fantastic? Look, I love backyard, no surprise. But you must bring a $100 note. And when you drop out, you take your $100 note, put it in the jar. Winner takes the jar. How cool is that?
It's like an amazing lottery. That's great. Wow.
Can you imagine if there's only 2 of you left? There's 13. There's nothing for second. 0 for second.
Wow.
Winner takes the jar.
That's great. Oh, that's very good. Very good. Wow.
So,
love it.
Just as an idea, for UTMB, I mean, maybe that, I don't know. Can you imagine? Just everybody brought $10 and the winner got the $10, even if it was just 10 or 100. Imagine at UTMB, everyone brought $100. There's 2,000 races. That means the winner gets next to 200,000 US. Let's go. There's something here, right? I don't know.
For sure. I think the last week's podcast had also triggered, because we talked about FKTs a bit. And interesting enough, there was some feedback from the community and people pointing out now FKT. So I heard of one being set up here in North Vietnam, for example. They're doing it. You are talking to Natalie, who is doing 1,000-kilometer FKT.
From Thailand to Singapore, starting right on the border of Thailand in 12 days, going the length of Malaysia, 1,000K, finishing in Singapore, 84K a day, going for the Guinness record for the fastest run from Thailand to Singapore, basically the length of Malaysia.
Wow. Yeah, that's impressive. Nice.
She's an absolute killer. I mean, she's in her 50s. She regularly wins races out here. I call her the Courtney of Asia because she's in her 50s. And she's winning races, like these 100K loop races. She's great on loop races. She's got a steely mind. She's winning races out here, full stop. A 50-year-old lady killing it. I mean, she is an absolute killer of a 50-year-old lady, but she is winning races. And yeah, she's going to run this on May the 24th in support of charities empowering young women to do more, Yeah, she's up.
Talking about age, I also have a little story here to tell. 2 days ago, I was part of the Hoi An, which is a city in Vietnam, Hoi An runners community year-end party. You know that the Lunar New Year is how they measure the year here. So the inspirational story of that run club is a 76-year-old gentleman who is looking like he's 50, and he is doing half marathons in 2 hours and 15 minutes.
Nice.
Just this super local old gentleman who looks so fit and just smiles, and you can see having a blast of his life. It was very inspirational. 2:15 is, it's not the fastest, of course, but it's super impressive. There's no age group in Vietnam for the 70 or plus. There's only 60 or plus. So he is unfortunately not recognized in many races because he's basically too old for the age group.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. He's like Harvey Lewis's friend, Mike Fremont, the 102-year-old guy who's still cracking out 5 miles a day or something like that. So he can be the Vietnam's octogenarian and centurion who is still running.
It is time for Ned's weekly drop. Over to you, Ned.
Thank you, man. I won't explain this one. We'll just do it. Let's go for it. So forgive that I kind of read it a little bit. You'll see me looking at the camera, looking at my phone, but this is how it goes. Alrighty. This one's called It's You, or the soul of our sport. Lazarus Lake. Is he a race director? He thought of backyard when he was at college 40 years ago. It was always in his mind and always in his heart. John Collins. You know who he is, right? He got drunk with some friends in Honolulu. One of them a swimmer, one a cyclist, one a runner. They were arguing over who is the fittest. So they said, let's do all three in a day. And the winner, let's call them an Ironman. The Oahu open water swim, the Round the Island cycle, and the Honolulu Marathon. 12 people started that day. 12. That's it. Winner got a metal nut on a coat hanger that looked like an Ironman. That started a movement. The Pilates. Can you run around Mont Blanc in a day? Would other people want to do it? Would anyone want to do it? First, a few said yes, then more. Now, too many? Maybe. Maybe not. What if everyone in the world was an ultra runner? I think the world would be better. Andre Bloomberg, Hong Kong 4 trails. Big city, bigger trails. All 4 in 4 days. 300K. Not possible. Now it's done in under 2 days. It's you. You don't need to create a race for all. It's great if you do, but create your own adventure in your own mind. Plot a route for a weekend that's different, hard, wild, short, long. Who cares? But make it an adventure, because that's what it's about. It's about your own journey to be in a place that fulfills you. But don't make it easy for yourself. Make it hard, like backyard, like Ironman, like UTMB, like 4 trails. Make it seem outside the realm of your possibility. And then fail a few times, because you never learned anything from the easy path. Get out there, Ned.
Thank you, Ned. Goosebumps all the way.
Thank you, man.
Very good.
Got to get out there, and it's this theme, I think, that is coming of micro adventure. Of course, you should go to UTMB. And again, we were not bashing, but we were talking about UTMB in the beginning. It's still a great adventure. Adventure is crucial 4 trails, UTMB, Ironman. But you can adventure outside your front door. You can just open your door and do stupid shit right away. Do it. Don't let anybody define it. Just get out, do it. I'll report on my stupid adventure. I'll see if I can break Marcus's 30 minutes to do a 5K after 100K. So I'll see if I can do it. Who knows? I don't care. I do care. I really do care. I do want to break 30. But if I don't care. It's an adventure. So, yeah, it's a bit of an impassioned plea to don't be restrained by other people's adventures, which are amazing. Get out there and do your own.
Thank you. That's a wrap. Great stuff, Ned. If you, audience, like this, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, go to website onemorek.com. They have a newsletter. Sign up. You can read, or you will receive Ned's weekly drop there as well as an email. Otherwise, reach out, give us comments, give us feedback. We love to hear from you guys. We love you all. And thank you so much for being part of this journey.
Thank you, guys. We appreciate it. And we will see you next week on One More K.